Now, the war in Ukraine has certainly led to a focus on nuclear energy. First, there were those concerns when Russian troops seized the infamous decommissioned nuclear plant at Chernobyl. And then there were concerns when a fire was started by armaments at Europe's largest nuclear power station in central Ukraine. But also Europe's energy crisis has been exacerbated by Russia's invasion, prompting some countries to re-examine their nuclear industries. France, of course, has started what they're calling a nuclear renaissance, with major new nuclear power plants to be built there. And Germany, in all sorts of strife over energy without Russian gas, is looking at extending the life of nuclear plants that were to be shut down before the end of this year. Let me bring in the former CEO of Australian Nuclear Science and Technology, Adi Patterson. Good to talk to you again, Adi. You would have been interesting watching these developments with keen interest.
Absolutely, Chris. I'm very interested also in how it isn't completely sorted out in Germany. There are still people trying to stop the restart who are in different parts of the political structure there. But basically, Germany is now heavily dependent on Russian oil and gas. If they had not switched off over the last 10 years or so, a great number of their nuclear plants, they wouldn't have this dependence. So they've set themselves up for a really challenging number of years. I'm still doubtful whether they'll actually switch on the plants. I think there are two that are left that can be switched on. I suspect that it'll be stitched up politically.
Yeah, well, politics is one issue, and that's playing out, as you say. They have looked to extend the life of some coal-fired power stations because they are facing this energy crisis. Tell us when it comes to the science and the engineering, if they've started to decommission these nuclear power plants, is it very difficult to reverse that situation? Do you think they've perhaps have they gone too far down the decommissioning path?
I don't believe so. I think it's more people who really didn't want that change to take place that are trying to do it in. Same thing's happening in the United States in one of the Florida plants, where the current Nuclear Regulatory Commission in the United States is stacked with people who don't really like nuclear. And they've asked for new approvals before they switch that plant back on. So there's a long-running history of people undoing the potential benefits of nuclear power. However, you see a country like France transforming itself by agreeing to build a whole raft of new plants, and it already has the lowest carbon electricity in the whole of Europe. So it's a contrast of two different models, one which is really serious about doing something, and others where it's a kind of smoke and mirrors game of shadows.
Well, France is already like the energy saviour of Europe because not only is it self-sufficient with its energy needs, it has the sovereign nuclear industry. It also exports a lot of electricity when those other countries, including Germany, need it. Presumably that's only going to increase now that they're looking to build up their nuclear energy industry. It seems so wise because, of course, they want to be low emissions or zero emissions. So it's so wise they're going to be energy independent. Yet Australia is making no progress. It's still illegal to even examine these prospects in Australia.
Yeah, we sell about 6,000 tonnes of uranium. We did in the last financial year. That uranium, if we used it to produce electricity in Australia, the amount we sell every year would produce 70% of Australia's own electricity, just plain swap for clean power. France is really interesting because it's the only country in the world that can take essentially uranium out of the ground and get it all the way into fuel. And it's my belief that it should not be against the law in Australia to convert our uranium into, first of all, enrich it. And if we enriched it, we'd be able to fabricate fuel. And if we fabricated fuel, we would add about 10 times the value for the $608 million that we currently get every year from selling it. So we could turn that into $6 billion. But it's against the law. So it's against the law to do any of those steps, which is crazy. In fact, where I'm sitting in New South Wales, it's against the law to put a spade into the ground to look for uranium. And so we're living in a weird situation where the history of nuclear is much more important than the future that it could provide for us. And to create high-quality jobs and secure fuel.
It is madness. It will change one day and we'll keep talking about it. Thanks for sharing your insights with us, Adi.
Absolutely. Have a good evening.